Hi, Achim here from InnerSpace Explorers. Today I want to discuss something with you. I will give you my opinion on it, and then I'm really looking forward to hear your thoughts and discuss this a little bit more in detail. And it is the old question: what do you do first, the shallow dive or the deep dive? And before we start talking about that, if you like my channel, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you subscribe, hit that little notification bell so you get an update when I upload new content, which is normally once a week. All right, so whatever manual you take from whatever organizations, it looks like there's always the same recommendation, which is do the deep dive first and then do the shallow dive. And especially in recreational diving, I mean, when you talk about the liveaboard in Egypt, or if you look at the classical two-tank dive that is very common in the Caribbean and Florida, that's normally what you do. You do the deeper dive. So if I look back to my time in Florida, I mean, the typical thing was do a wreck dive first, like the Eagle, the Dwayne, the Bib, all these wrecks that sit in between 30 and 40 meters. And then a while later, you take your second tank, the two-tank dive, and do a shallow reef dive in the 8-9 meter range, something like that. And that's very typical. So what I want to focus a little bit more on is the technical aspect of it. So deeper dives. So you do decompression diving and you do 2 or 3 dives a day, which I generally don't like too much. I prefer to do 1 per day. But sometimes you just have to. Have to. You're somewhere and it's like the chance of a lifetime. You go to the Bikini Atoll, for example, and you know it's not like you're coming back next year and you want to see as much as possible, or you're working on a certain project and you do repetitive technical dives, repetitive decompression dives. And what I always what my thinking behind is, and I can tell you up front, I prefer to do the deeper dive as the second dive. And for the past 2 decades, that worked extremely well for me. And the thinking behind, for me, was if you look at a decompression dive, and let's say something goes wrong, you're at your, let's say, 21 meter stop, and you have an issue and you have to leave the water, so you have to abort your decompression. And then you go back. So it doesn't mean, I mean, let's say you have to go to the surface and then you go down. Let's say you don't have gas, you go back to the boat, you grab spare gas and you go back down to finish your decompression. So obviously you violated your decompression profile, and now you have to fix it, so to speak. So how deep would you go minimum to restart your decompression? Obviously deeper than 21 meters, right? Because the bubbles that formed due to the pressure difference between 21 meters, which is 3.1 bars, to the surface, you want to recompress these bubbles that have formed, are in the process of starting, so you can get rid of that gas without harming yourself. So you would go deeper than these 21 meters. And that is a little bit the thinking that I always had in the back of my mind when I made the decision if I do the deeper or the shallower dive first. I'd always do the deeper one because my feeling is that when you leave the water after the dive, there's obviously remaining gas in your body from that first dive. That's why you have a no flight time. That's why you have a certain surface time, etc., etc., etc. So if I go down and I go deeper than the first dive, I actually get all this gas out of my tissues back into my system, and then doing a longer or more extensive decompression after that last dive, I get rid of all of that. So attention, this is not a scientific or medical correct explanation. This is simple thinking, and simple thinking also in a way of explaining what is the reason behind me doing it. And I know there's a lot of divers out there, technical divers, that do exactly the same thing. So what I would be interested in is hearing from you, is that something you do as well and you have good experience with that? Did you do it and had bad experience with it? If so, you know the reason why, or what happened, or what did you do different? Or do you say, no, I always do the shallow one first, the deep one first, and then the shallow one? Did you had issues with that, or did that always work out? Let me know. I'm super curious. If you want to go into that discussion a little bit deeper, please check out the Patreon site. That's where we normally discuss things on a more private scale. And that's a super nice community meanwhile. All right, I hope you find that interesting, and I'm really looking forward to your comments. And other than that, stay safe, have a nice Sunday, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.